Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We're here to, cut through the noise and really get into the details that matter from the source material. Today, we are taking a deep dive into the very top end of professional mirrorless cameras. We're comparing two real heavyweights, the Canon EOS R3, which is already established and, battle-tested, against the brand new flagship, the Canon EOS R1. So if you're trying to figure out where Canon is putting its latest tech, and maybe more importantly, which of these incredibly fast cameras gives you the best bang for your buck for action, sports, maybe wildlife, this is the deep dive for you. Our mission is simple: get past the spec sheets, break down what really separates them, and help you understand if that big price jump for the R1 is actually worth it. And that price difference, it really comes down to one thing: milliseconds. I mean, in professional action photography, there's just no room for error.
That perfect shot, the peak moment, it's often gone faster than you can even think to press the button. So these cameras, they aren't just built to be fast, they're engineered to basically cheat time, to react faster than your own reflexes.
Okay, let's unpack this then. Before we get into what makes the R1 potentially worth thousands more, we need to talk about the foundation. Just how good is the R3 already? What's the shared DNA here?
Well, the core imaging part, it's pretty much identical. And that's huge if you're considering 𝐖𝐲1. Both cameras use the exact same 24.0 megapixel stacked CMOS full-frame sensor. Now, stacked CMOS is key. It means the circuitry is tucked underneath the pixels, letting the camera read data incredibly fast. So what does that mean for you? Straight out of the box, the image quality, the fundamental look you get, it's identical. You're not paying more for the R1 to get better resolution or, nicer colors.
And that similarity carries over into the build and some core features too, doesn't it?
Precisely. Yeah, both are built tough, designed for pro use. They're mirrorless, obviously, and critically, both have in-body image stabilization, IBIS. And for you, IBIS means the sensor itself shifts to cancel out your hand movements. Super important when you're using big, heavy lenses and trying to track something moving fast. Plus, they're both seriously weather-sealed, rain, dust, they can take a beating.
Okay, and autofocus, that's got to be crucial for speed.
Yeah.
Looks pretty similar on paper, too.
It does, yeah. Both use Canon's really advanced hybrid phase detect autofocus. They've got over 1,000 AF points, them of 53 to be exact, and that cool eye-sensing AF that helps lock onto the subject's eye. And they both perform amazingly in low light, too. Down to Minevis 6 EV, they'll find photos in conditions where it's almost dark.
So if the sensor, the stabilization, the build, the basic AF system are all pretty much the same, then that huge price difference must be down to the R1's processing power, its brain.
That's exactly it. And what's fascinating here is where Canon focused that extra R&D. It wasn't more pixels, it was pure computational speed and, smarts. So let's look at the processor. The R3 uses the standard 𝐷IGIC-X, which is already really, really fast. But the R1, it gets the 𝐷IGIC-X plus this new thing called an accelerator processor. You can sort of think of the accelerator as like a dedicated co-processor just for the autofocus. It's not just about crunching data faster. It's designed for genuinely better tracking and predictive focusing, especially when things get really messy subjects moving erratically against cluttered backgrounds.
So it's not just seeing a face, it's trying to guess where that face is going next faster.
Exactly. Yeah, think about, say, a skier weaving through gates, snow kicking up everywhere. A normal system tracks what just happened. The accelerator is trying to predict the next tiny shift in direction, milliseconds before the standard chip even registers the change. It's about shaving off that tiny bit of processing lag.
Okay, that makes sense for continuous tracking. But the feature everyone's buzzing about, the one that feels like a real leap, that's the pre-release birth mode. And only the R1 has it. Yes, this is the game changer, because it tackles that last big hurdle, your own reaction time.
The R1 actually starts buffering images, saving them temporarily for up to half a second before you fully press the shutter button down. So you see something totally unexpected happen, maybe a bird suddenly tucks its wings to die horror. You react, you hit the shutter, but the camera already captured the start of that action, the bit you would normally miss.
Wait a second, though. That sounds incredible, like a safety net. But doesn't that constant buffering just chew up memory card space and battery like crazy? I mean, is that really practical for, say, a whole football game? Or is it something you only turn on for specific moments?
That's a really good question, a practical one. The sources suggest it's efficient, but yeah, you probably wouldn't leave it running nonstop all day. But for those absolutely critical, unpredictable moments, the start of a 100-meter dash, a key interception, that specific wildlife behavior you've waited hours for, it's potentially invaluable. Pros often make that trade-off, manage the logistics to guarantee they don't miss that shot.
Okay, and speaking of not missing shots, let's talk raw speed. The R3 is already incredibly fast, but the R1 seems to take it to another level for just sheer volume.
Oh, the numbers are pretty staggering here. Look, the R3 is a beast, 30 frames per second using the electronic shutter. And its buffer holds about 420 raw files. That gives you, 14 seconds of continuous shooting? Fantastic. But the R1, it pushes that electronic burst to 40 frames per second. That's the third faster. And the buffer, it holds over 1,000 raw files.
1,000 raws continuously. That's over 25 seconds of nonstop 40p shooting.
Yeah. And that extra 10 FPS plus that massively deeper buffer means two key things for a pro. First, just way more frames to choose from to find the absolute perfect millisecond within an action. Second, and maybe even more important for some jobs, the camera just won't slow down or stop buffering during really long action sequences. Think like a whole gymnastics floor routine or an entire scoring drive in American football. The R1 just keeps going when the R3 might eventually hit its buffer limit and slow.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit. Here's where it gets really interesting for the day-to-day experience, the physical stuff. If you're shooting professionally, you spend hours looking through that viewfinder, and the R1 seems to have a major upgrade there.
It really does. The R3's electronic viewfinder, the EVF, is already excellent. It's sharp. 5.76 million dots, 0.76x magnification. Very good. But the R1, it's got a spectacular upgrade. We're talking 9.44 million dots, and the magnification is bigger too, 0.90x.
Wow, 9.44 million dots. That's almost double the resolution. That's not just numbers on a page, right? If you're trying to track something fast or nail manual focus, that clarity must make a real difference over a long day.
Absolutely. A bigger, sharper view helps you compose better, track subjects more easily with less eye strain, and just be more confident that your focus is absolutely nailed, especially when the pressure's on.
And then looking at storage, again, the R1 seems focused purely on maximum speed and reliability.
Yeah, the storage setup really shows the R1's priorities. It has dual CF Express Type B card slots. CF Express Type B, that's the fastest standard out there right now, period. The R3, on the other hand, it gives you one of those fast CF Express Type B slots, but the second slot is a standard SD card slot, albeit a fast UHS-2 one.
So the R3 gives you maybe a bit more flexibility. You can use those common SD cards.
Yeah.
But the R1, it's all about guaranteeing the top right speed for those huge bursts and having that dual CF Express backup for every single shot.
Exactly. And you see other little speed bumps pointing to that top tier focus, like the flash sync speed. It's a bit faster on the R1 13/20th of a second versus 12/50th on the R3.
Okay, flash sync speed. Why should someone care about that small difference, 1250 versus 1320?
It gives you a little more wiggle room when you're using flash outdoors in bright sunlight, trying to overpower the sun, basically. Lets you use a slightly wider aperture, or lower ISO maybe, to balance the flash with the ambient light without blowing out highlights. It's useful for certain kinds of portrait work on location. Oh, and for video shooters, the R1 has no recording time limit, whereas the R3 technically stops after 6 hours, 360 minutes, could matter for long events or interviews.
Right. So, okay, the R1 is clearly faster, potentially smarter with that accelerator, and has that amazing pre-release safety net. But now we have to swing back to the R3, because for a lot of people, it's probably still more than enough camera, and the price, well, that's a big factor.
Absolutely. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, the R3 is still an incredible value, especially now.
Let's talk numbers. The R1 body only list price is $6,800. What's the R3 going for these days?
Well, its original list price was $5,400, but now, especially with the R1 out, you can often find the R3, body only, for closer to $4,000, sometimes even a bit less if there's a sale.
Okay, so we're talking potentially a $2,800 difference between the R3 street price and the R1 launch price. That buys you a very nice lens.
Exactly. That's probably the single biggest point for most people trying to decide. That huge saving could easily get you a top-of-the-line professional lens, a fast prime, a workhorse zoom. And honestly, often the quality of the glass you put on the front of the camera makes a bigger difference to your final images, your creative options, than maybe going from 30ps to 40ps. A killer lens on the R3 might give you better results overall than a decent lens on the R1.
That's a really good point. And there's portability too, right? Minor difference, but it adds up.
Yeah, the R3 is slightly lighter, about 100 grams, or roughly a quarter-pound lighter than the R1. Doesn't sound like much, but if you're carrying it all day, hiking, on the sidelines for hours, every little bit helps reduce fatigue. Plus, you can't ignore the R3's track record. It came out in 2021. It's been the main camera for pros at the Olympics, World Cups, you name it. It's proven itself. It's reliable. It's trustworthy. It's been absolutely battle-tested in the toughest conditions.
So what does this all mean then? Okay, let's try and boil it down. If you're listening and trying to choose, How do you make that call between a proven, fantastic $4,000 camera and this new bleeding-edge $6,800 one? I think the choice really boils down to one question. How often are you currently missing critical shots due to speed limitations? And is fixing that worth almost $3,000? Okay, so you should probably choose the Canon R1 IF. You're regularly shooting super fast, unpredictable action, like birds changing direction midair, maybe extreme motorsports where anything can happen in a split second. If that half-second pre-release buffer genuinely sounds like it would save shots you know you missed because you just can't react fast enough, and if you absolutely need that 40-50 speed in the giant buffer to never miss a moment in a long sequence, then the R1, despite the cost, might be the tool you need.
Right. But conversely, you should probably choose the Canon R3 IF. You want truly top-tier professional speed and autofocus performance, but at a much more accessible price point. If that nearly $3,000 saving would let you buy a lens that unlocks new creative possibilities, or if, honestly, 30 frames per second and the R3's already excellent buffer are more than enough for the work you do right now, then the R3 is arguably the smarter buy, both financially and maybe even professionally.
Yeah, I think the final consensus here really is there isn't a wrong answer. They're both incredible cameras. Both give you that same fantastic 24-megapixel image quality. Let's stress that again. The whole decision really hinges on whether those specific R1 advancements, the pre-release burst, the extra FPS, the slightly smarter AF brain, are worth that significant extra cost for your specific needs.
Yeah, and that leads to a final, maybe provocative thought for you to chew on. These cameras, R1 and R3, they represent the absolute peak right now. They remove the gear as the excuse. They expand what's even possible to capture. But think about that trade-off very carefully. Is basically eliminating your human reaction time with pre-release burst and getting those extra 10 frames per second truly worth $2,800 to you? Or would that same money invested in a world-class lens mounted on the front of an R3 actually do more to elevate your photography and broaden what you can create? That choice says a lot about not just the camera you pick, but the kind of images you prioritize making.